If you're thinking about buying a home in Florida, there's one number I want you to know before you fall in love with the house. And it isn't the purchase price. It's the insurance quote. I've watched buyers spend weeks negotiating a few $1,000s off the price of a home, only to discover that insurance could change their monthly housing expense far more than they expected. And if you're moving here from another state, Florida homeowners insurance can be confusing. So today, I'm going to simplify it. We're going to talk about why Florida insurance is different, why the roof matters so much, what wind mitigation is, when flood insurance comes into play, what inspections you may encounter, and most importantly, what I would do before buying a house. Here's my take after watching buyers deal with this for years. Insurance is no longer something I think buyers should investigate after they've decided they love the house. It belongs much earlier in the decision. Because the question isn't simply, can I buy this home? The better question is, what is this home actually going to cost me to own? If you're coming from another state, you may be surprised by how much attention we pay to roofs in Florida. When was it installed? What type of roof is it? What condition is it in? Does the owner have permits or any kind of documentation? What useful life does the insurer believe remains? These questions can have a direct impact on your insurance cost. That's why when I'm evaluating two similar homes with a buyer, I don't necessarily look at an older roof simply as, eventually you'll have to replace that. I also want to know, what does this roof mean for insurance today? That can change the economics of the purchase. Let's talk about a rule of thumb that we as agents use in the field. If a roof or an HVAC system is more than 15 years old, most insurance companies won't write a policy on it. There might be a few that will, but you're really probably going to have to change those out pretty quickly after you close. The general rule of thumb is 15 years of age or older on a roof, HVAC system, or water heater, you're going to have a hard time finding an insurance policy with those components. Florida homeowners insurance is complicated, but complicated doesn't mean you should be afraid to buy here. It means you need better information before you buy. Understand the roof. Understand the home's wind mitigation features. Understand your flood exposure. Get the inspections. Get an insurance quote early. And compare the total cost of owning the house, not simply the purchase price. That's how you make a good Florida real estate decision. Let's start with the obvious question. Why is homeowners insurance such a big conversation in Florida? We live on a peninsula surrounded by warm water, and hurricanes are part of the risk profile. But hurricanes aren't the entire story. Insurance companies evaluate the construction of the home, the roof, its age and condition, how well the home is protected against the wind, previous claims, location, and other factors. That's why simply asking what's the average cost of homeowners insurance in Florida doesn't give you enough information. What matters is, what will it cost to insure this house? You're going to hear a phrase that some people moving here have never heard before: wind mitigation. A wind mitigation inspection or report looks at features of the home that can help it withstand wind damage. Things like the roof construction and attachment, roof-to-wall connections, the shape of the roof, and the protection of the openings can matter. Those features can potentially affect the wind portion of an insurance policy. And here's why this becomes interesting as a buyer. Two homes might be listed both for $500,000. They might be roughly the same size. They might even be in the same neighborhood. But if one has characteristics that make it more attractive from an insurance standpoint, their actual monthly ownership cost may not be the same. That's why I want buyers comparing more than just prices. Another term you may hear is a 4-point inspection. This generally focuses on the 4 major systems: the roof, the electrical, the plumbing, and the HVAC, or the air conditioning system. These inspections are commonly associated with insurance underwriting, particularly as homes age. This is different from the full home inspection that you're typically obtaining to understand the overall condition of the property. So don't assume that one inspection necessarily replaces the other. The 4-point inspection is solely for the insurance company. Then we have flood insurance. And this is where I want buyers to slow down. Homeowners insurance and flood insurance are not the same thing. A standard homeowner's policy generally does not cover flooding from rising water. Whether flood insurance is required by a lender can depend on the property's flood risk designation and the financing. But I wouldn't make the decision solely around whether somebody tells me you aren't required to have it. I want to understand the actual risk. I want to know where the property sits. And then I want the buyer to make an informed decision with their insurance professional. This is the bigger lesson. When people ask, how much house can I afford? They tend to focus on the purchase price and the interest rate. But your real housing cost includes principal, interest, property taxes, homeowners insurance, possibly flood insurance, the homeowners association or the CDD fees where they have them, and the maintenance of the home. So 2 homes with identical prices don't necessarily have identical monthly costs. That's why insurance belongs in the affordability question in the very beginning. So let me tell you exactly what I would do if I were buying a Florida home today. First, I'd establish a relationship with a good local insurance professional before I started writing offers. Not after I'm under contract, before. That way, when we find a property, I have someone who can help me evaluate it quickly. Second, I'd ask about the roof immediately. Age, permit history when it's available, type, condition, any documentation the seller has. Third, once I'm under contract, I'd get the appropriate inspections performed as early as practical during my inspection period. And fourth, I'd get an actual insurance quote for the property, not an estimate from a friend, not what the neighbor says they pay, not what the seller currently pays, a quote based on me purchasing that particular home. This is another mistake I want you to avoid. You ask the seller, what do you pay for insurance? They give you a number, and you put that number into your budget. Don't do that. Their circumstances aren't necessarily yours. Their policy isn't necessarily the policy you'll obtain. Their coverage choices may be different. Their carrier may evaluate a new policy differently. Use their information as information, but get your own quote. People sometimes assume that a newer house equals cheaper insurance. It isn't always that simple. But construction standards and specific wind-resistant features can absolutely matter. That's why I want to understand the actual property rather than making assumptions based solely on age. Likewise, an older house isn't automatically a bad purchase. An older home may have an updated roof, plumbing, electrical system, HVAC system, and wind mitigation improvements. The details matter. Here's where all of this comes back to real estate. Suppose we're comparing 2 houses. House A cost $485,000. House B cost $500,000. At first glance, House A looks like the better deal. But when we investigate, House A has an older roof and other items that affect the insurance conversation. House B has a newer roof and stronger wind mitigation characteristics. Once we compare insurance, maintenance, and the improvements we need to make, House B might actually be the better financial decision. Or it might not. The point is, we didn't know until we looked beyond the purchase price. That's the kind of analysis I think buyers need in Florida. If you're considering buying a home in Central Florida, Don't wait until you're 3 days from closing to start understanding insurance. Build it into your buying strategy from the very beginning. That's something my team helps our clients navigate every day. We're not insurance agents, and we're not going to tell you which policy to buy. What we can do is help you identify the questions to ask, bring the right professionals into the process, and help you evaluate the real estate decision with the full picture in front of you. If you're thinking about moving to Central Florida, our information is below. Reach out whether you're ready today or you're still a year away. We'd love to talk to you.